The Turf and Touchdowns podcast is back. We're in flying form, and we're not the only thing that's back as well. Keeneland is back this week over in the USA. Myself, Luke Elder, alongside Tom Collins, and it's just a good time for everyone, Tom. The weather over here, fantastic. In America and Keeneland, not so much.
Yeah, I'll come to that in a second. We should briefly touch on last week. As you said, it's been a good time to follow Turf and Touchdowns. We had the forecast with Sandman beating Publisher over in the Arkansas Derby. And then Sovereignty, I think, ran to kind of what we anticipated in the Florida Derby. Yes, he didn't get his head in front, which we both hoped, but I thought he ran a great prep race. I want your response on that before I come to the weather in Keeneland, because that's a little bit of a lesser happy moment than what the results last week.
What you want to know what I thought of Sovereignty's chances?
I do.
Derby.
I do.
He wins. And he wins so hard.
You know what? I completely agree with you, but social media seems to have completely written him off. What's gone on?
I saw one other person go, well, that run from Sovereignty, I mean, the price is going up for him now. I mean, when I say price is going up, they were saying it's positive, not his betting price is going up. I text you after the race, just going, he wins at Churchill. And then you replied going, yep, wins at Churchill. Yep. And then everyone else was like, yeah, it's all right from Sovereignty, but, he got beat. That's bad. It's like, what? Why?
It wasn't bad at all. The track was against him. Everything we said in that preview came to light. The track was against him. He was going to stay on late, but he might be just too far back, and the race wouldn't develop early enough for him. That is what was anticipated. He got beat, but he got beat by a nice horse at Brad Cox's. Run that race at Churchill. That form is being reversed. Sovereignty didn't do anything to harm his chances of winning the Kentucky Derby 2025. And if anything, I'm a little bit more confident now. But look, if people aren't happy about him going towards Churchill, that's great, because it means we're going to get a better price.
100%. I mean, the 20 minutes after the race, he drifted from 8-1 out to 12-1. I backed him again for the Kentucky Derby. He's 10-1 currently. Take that price. I think it should be half of it, honestly. Obviously, we're going to find out a lot more this week, because we're going to be previewing the Bluegrass over at Keeneland, but there is also the Wood Memorial going on, which is a good race at Aqueduct, and it's a Santa Anita Derby as well, where there's only, I think, 5 runners in there, but Journalism's running in the Santa Anita Derby. You've got Barnes that's running as well, and Bob Baffert is desperately trying to find who his Kentucky Derby horse is now, because chances are it's probably not going to be Cornucopian. I doubt he'll even be there. I just wanted to give a couple of shout-outs before we move on. Vale Place commented on YouTube after the race last week, saying, well, you boys called it exactly. I wish I found/watched you earlier.
Love that.
I mean, that's great. That's great. Welcome, Vale Place, because I assume you're here. But he was with Tappan Street and Speed King. Last week, let's just touch on that Cornucopian ride along with Speed King. What on earth were professional jockeys doing?
Oh, Johnny V can hang his head in shame. Look, he's a Hall of Fame rider. He's ridden so many good horses and ridden them well. That was not one of the occasions where Johnny was in the headlines for the right reason. It was a shocking ride on Cornucopian. You've got to take back and track. Speed King only had one way of going. That was forward. To go 45 and change through the half, shambles. But that did help both of our picks. So we did say that was a possibility. And briefly to talk about those comments as well that you mentioned there. If you are just watching us for the first time, please do subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our content moving forward. It's not just horse racing either. It's also NFL once the season fully gets underway, but there will be a few videos between now and then.
Yeah, in regards to the NFL, if you want to play fantasy football with us, there will be loads of chances throughout the off-season regards to fantasy football and joining our listener league. But let's take a look over at Keeneland, because, yes, plenty went right for us last week, but we need to keep that form going forward. We have got the Bluegrass to look forward to. Normally, I would say, Tom, that there is a market out, and we can read that out. I haven't actually looked. Of course, there's a market out. Good job, everyone. Have you seen this market?
I haven't, no.
Go on then. Let's play the game.
Well, I've seen the morning line. I haven't seen the international market. Let's just say River Thames is favourite because of connections at 9-4.
Oh, 5-2.
5-2.
I'm favourite.
Yeah. East Avenue, maybe second in?
No, 5th.
Okay, good. That's kind of my thinking as well. So the market's got it right. Owen Almighty?
Yep, 7-2.
Okay, fine. I think the chance that McPatrick will be there or thereabouts as well, but yeah, the market's generally correct.
River Thames 5-2, Owen Almighty 7-2, 4-1 chance McPatrick, 9-2 Burnham Square, East Avenue's 5-1, Admiral Dennis at 18s, and Render Judgment is 25-1. Honestly, Tom, we dunk on English odds makers for sort of making American markets anti-post. This one isn't so far wrong. That one's not too bad.
It's not too bad. There are a couple of prices that I think will either shorten or drift up based on what you've just said there. But it's not like there's an absolute rick or a howler in there. I feel like this is relatively accurate for a market that's 4 days out from the actual race.
Yeah, I completely agree. Over at Santa Anita for the Santa Anita Derby, journalism 6-5 favourite there. He's looking to take his next step towards the Kentucky Derby. But let's talk about the Bluegrass, because we've got a ton of contenders in here. River Thames is the favourite. He's 5-2 at the moment on the or in the outright market. I mean, he's not done a great deal wrong so far in his career. Not bad form at all.
No, it's a good start to his career. I will briefly touch now on the fact that there's a lot of rain due this week. 8 inches they're expecting. It's a huge thunderstorm on Friday. This track, if they race on Saturday, and it's not postponed to Monday or Tuesday, if they race on Saturday, this track is going to be very, very wet, sloppy, and it's going to not be suiting every horse. It's going to be taxing, and it could be even more beneficial to be on the front end. That's where River Thames comes in. He's part of the speed in this race, alongside maybe Owen Almighty and one other who I can't even remember at this point. East Avenue, that's it. And those 3 could all push forward. They're not going to be taking much kickback if they're 3 across the track, and that could be an advantage. River Thames is a nice horse. He's 2 from 3 so far. The only time he got beaten, he was second behind Sovereignty, the horse that we've already spoken about, and both like for the Derby. So that form works out. My one issue with this horse is not only is he going to be on a contested speed, and therefore he's going to have to prove that he is the bee's knees. The trip is a problem. He's never gone this far. And last time up at Gulfstream, the worst part of that race for him was the final 100 yards, or maybe half a furlong if you prefer that metric. And also, Todd Pletcher at spring meets at Keeneland doesn't have the best of stats. This is a meeting where you're looking towards Brad Cox, Chad Brown, Wesley Ward with the 2-year-olds, Brendan Walsh, not Todd Pletcher. The last 2 spring meets, Todd Pletcher, 9 from 51, an 18% strike rate. Now, 18% isn't terrible by all means, but with Pletcher, you're anticipating to see 25 to 30% whenever he runs his horses.
Yeah, and down at Gulfstream Park, he does very, very well with his horses as well, i.e. where River Thames has been. One thing that I don't love about River Thames from last time around, yes, he got run down by Sovereignty. And with that, you might think, well, it was a race that must have suited hold-up horses. Not necessarily. It wasn't a race that really suited any part of the contest. But the 1-2 throughout, himself and Neo Equus, they were second and third. When I went back to watch the replay, in my mind, I just had River Thames being the standalone pace angle that kept going, and Neo Equus fell out the back of the TV. Didn't happen. Neo Equus wasn't far behind River Thames. That, for me, is a slight concern.
Yeah, and for me as well. Neo Equus didn't run... Well, he ran okay. He finished third last week, but he didn't really trouble the protagonist last week, and he's not a horse that really wants distance, in my opinion. So, I don't know. I think the race was okay. I do think that race was fair, the Fountain of Youth, but I'm concerned with River Thames in this spot against now a litany of better horses. Sovereignty is a very good horse, but Sovereignty was the only very good horse, in my opinion, potentially one other, in that race. Whereas in this race, he faces 3 or 4 top quality animals.
Well, let's talk about the race a bit further, the Fountain of Youth, because Burnham Square was back in 4th place. He was only beaten 3 lengths. He sort of went through the race kind of with Sovereignty, and he didn't really get beat by Sovereignty all that much. I know he finished 4th, and I know he was sort of a staying on 4th, but if you mark him alongside Sovereignty, he's done very, very little wrong.
Exactly that. I thought he ran really well. He made his move at roughly the same time as Sovereignty. Sovereignty is just a better horse than Burnham Square, so I think that kind of outcome was expected, that Sovereignty was going to outfinish him. But Burnham Square in the final 16th was really strong. And actually just after the line, he was closing right up on River Thames and kind of matching Sovereignty with that finishing kick, which isn't easy to do. Prior to that Fountain of Youth, he won the Holy Bull and did it really well, beating a horse called Tappan Street, who came back last week and won the Florida Derby. So that form's working out. Prior to that, his maiden victory, when blinkers were first fitted, was exceptional. It was scintillating. So I think this horse is one that shouldn't be overlooked. He's going to be relishing the extra distance. A sloppy track is a bit of a question mark with him, but I love Ian Wilkes at Keeneland. That is my favourite angle. Plus the jockey switch to Brian Hernandez Jr., that's another positive.
I think you mentioned Burnham Square for Keeneland.
Yeah.
Maybe when we previewed the Holy Bull?
I think so.
Yeah. I mean, neither of us expected him to go and win that day. And I think you thought of him to win a lesser race at Keeneland. But look, he might well take out one of the main ones in form of the Bluegrass. So Burnham Square is absolutely a player. Chancellor McPatrick is a horse that, honestly, going into this year, I wasn't sure whether I was going to like him or not. He was a horse that I loved as a 2-year-old. He was great. Look, his effort when winning the at the Champagne Stakes was very good. He was very good when winning the Hopeful as well. He went into the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, one of the leading contenders. Honestly, it was a race that I didn't like for him. Del Mar just didn't think it was a track that would suit him, and ultimately, I wasn't wrong with that. But he came right back when he was quoted as not being anywhere near ready to run, when finishing second in the Tampa Bay Derby. Now, Owen Almighty looked brilliant that day, Tom, but I think Chancellor McPatrick comes out of the race with a lot of credit. The third from that day, Hill Road, he runs in the Wood Memorial this weekend as well, so that form is really going to be tested.
Yeah, it is. Owen Almighty and Chance McPatrick, both in this contest, reopposing each other. On Chance McPatrick, that juvenile, yes, the track didn't suit him, and we both really didn't like him that much in the race. He also didn't get the speed to chase. They crawled up top. Citizen Bull was able to dictate, and he just quickened off the front end. So, albeit on form figures, it looked like he massively disappointed. It just wasn't the right spot for him. Tampa Bay Derby, quoted as being 80% fit, as you say, and I thought he ran really well, actually, to finish second. He was a lot closer to the speed. I don't know if that's a positive or a negative for him. Going into the race, I thought if he could sit positive, then he would outfinish them, but he didn't. And I don't know whether that was just down to fitness or the fact that he prefers to come from a bit further back and do one big sweeping run around the outside. Maybe Connections treat him as a little bit more of a hold-up horse again in this race and try to come from last to first. And if they do, he'll go close. I much prefer him to Owen Almighty, who just got a great ride in the Tampa Bay Derby last time.
Yeah, totally agree. With Chance McPatrick, I don't see it as that much of a negative that he managed to lay up with the pace last time around. I know he was beaten ultimately, yes, but I think it was what you're saying, fitness slash a little bit of ring rust. When push came to shove, he just hung about for a little bit. That's not really him. He likes to get going and go through the gears gradually. I think it's going to be so much better with a run. The concern for me is that he doesn't need to win this race to get into the Kentucky Derby. So again, he might not be 100% fit. I would imagine Chad Brown has got in his mind, I'm just going to make you peak at Churchill, because as long as you run okay here, you're going to book your ticket and you'll be a-okay. So maybe this could just be another stepping stone, Tom. That said, I'm sure Chad Brown would love to win the Bluegrass at Keeneland. There's nothing behind that. But at the same time, the Kentucky Derby will be this horse's main goal.
Yeah, Chad's won this race actually 3 times in the last 6 years, so he does have a very good record here, and he usually puts his main Kentucky Derby hope in the Bluegrass. I agree with what you're saying that he doesn't need to win, because he doesn't need to win to get into the Derby, but I think he currently sits 19th in the standings, so he does need points, which may be a bit of a question mark, because this is a deep race.
It is. He needs to finish first 3 really to solidify his place in the Kentucky Derby, but I think he'll be absolutely fine finishing in the first 3. And we mentioned Owen Almighty kind of in passing there. We kind of spoke down about his Tampa Bay Derby performance a little while ago. I think when we were talking about, I don't know, there was someone in there. There was someone from the Tampa Bay Derby that we spoke about. But like you say, he got a soft lead. Everyone in the race wasn't fit. Hill Road wasn't fit either. I just think it was a performance that looked incredible, but I don't really want to buy into it too much.
Yeah, I thought the ride was A+ from Heradities, especially going around that first turn, pushing out Patch Adams, making sure he dictated the pace, slowing it up down the back, and then quickening off the final turn. I mean, it was a brilliant ride. He doesn't get Irad on board this time. Jose takes the ride because his older brother wants to ride River Thames, which is a bit of a negative when it comes to Owen Almighty. He's also going to be pressured on the front end by River Thames and also East Avenue, who we'll come to in a second. And I don't think he wants this distance. I think he wants the shorter the better, really, for him. 7 furlongs a mile. He does stay this far, but if you're pressured on the front end, stamina really becomes a number one priority, and I don't think he has that much of it.
I think he's an out-and-out miler, honestly. You say about Irad wants to ride River Thames. Would he have had a choice?
I think he would have. I genuinely do think he would have. I understand Todd Pletcher is kind of the first call for Ortiz, but I think if he wanted to stay on Owen Almighty, he could have in this spot, and he's decided not to.
Yeah, Owen Almighty, currently over in the UK, second in the market. It's currently 7-2. The other one that we haven't spoke about that's a contender, so to speak, in the betting is East Avenue. And boy, Tom, I mean, he put in a big performance here at Keeneland, and he's fallen off in 2 runs since.
Yeah, his first two runs, he looked like a monster, didn't he? That debut, I think it was at Ellis Park, and then second up in the Grade 1 Claiborne Futurity at this venue, he looked like a proper horse. But it is worth noting that on both of those occasions, he got straight to the front and he dictated matters and then kicked clear. Wasn't facing pace pressure. They didn't go hard up top. Just a perfect kind of scenario for him to win. Then he came in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, was sent off favourite at a very short price considering the pace setups that he had in his previous two races, and blew out. I'm willing to put a line through that because he did stumble at the start, and from the inside gate, he was never able to get into the right spot. So I'm happy to excuse that run. But how can you excuse his most recent start? That was just abysmal, wasn't it? I also watched him in a work at Fairgrounds on March 27th. Last night, I was trying to see if this horse had improved since that race. They put blinkers on for the first time in that work on March 27th at Fairgrounds, going 4 furlongs. He worked with a horse that's 0 from 6 and got beaten in a claimer last month, and he got stuffed in the work. I mean, the recent works look good on paper. I couldn't find any video footage of those, but based on that work, the blinkers are not going to see this horse in better light.
Yeah, his times, regards to work, are okay, but that said, I just don't know where we are, honestly, with East Avenue. He's gone from one of the hottest, the most anticipated 3-year-olds this season to, I mean, I don't even know if you're going to be running in graded races by the middle of the summer. But look, East Avenue, he's got something to prove. We know he's good enough, and he has put in big performances here at Keeneland in the past, but he's going to need to bounce right back. Anything at all on Render Judgment or Admiral Dennis?
No, not good enough.
No, I completely agree. Right, let's get into our selections. Last week, we did very well regards to selections, and this week we are not agreeing, but I don't think we're too far off on each other. I will let you go first, Tom, because your one is, at the moment, just slightly a bigger price.
Yeah, I'm not overly confident about anything in this spot. Last week, I was pretty confident with Sandman going very close, and I was pretty confident Sovereignty would be in the top 2. This time, I think my selection will be in the top 3, but I'm not overly confident that he'll win. But at the price, currently 9-2, you could play him each way or win play show in the US if you wish. The horse is Burnham Square. I've always been kind of labelling him as a Keeneland horse just due to Ian Wilkes' record here in these types of races with limited stock. I thought he ran very well behind Sovereignty last time up. The extra distance will help him. And if there is a contested pace and they do go hard up front, he's going to be the one that is really staying on, alongside Chance McPatrick, who was the last horse off my shortlist. Burnham Square at a slightly bigger price with the jockey switch is going to be my play.
Yeah, Charles McPatrick might be your last horse off the shortlist. He's my last horse on my shortlist. He's going to be my selection, Charles McPatrick. I think 4-1's a very fair price. Look, last time round, there was no secret made about it. I know on the clock, he ran fine. It was a speed figure of 87, but Chad Brown came out and said like he's 75%, 80% fit. We know that he wasn't ready to go to Tampa, and we know that he was always going to take a step forward. Chad Brown said that about Hill Road as well, who, as you say, runs in the Wood Memorial. The fact that he still managed to get within 3.5 lengths of Owen Almighty, who had everything go right, and that was much more his trip on a speed favouring track, I think that was a heck of a performance. And you look at the amount of distance as well at the, say, furlong pole between Chance McPatrick and Hill Road, and then take a look again at the line. He was really finishing the race out quite strongly. I think he was just rusty. Last year, he looked a very good 2-year-old, but he didn't do exceptional things. He just did things to beat others, the likes of Ferocious. He would slowly go up through the gears, and then once he hits top gear, he's absolutely flying. I think he's a very good horse, Chance McPatrick. I think he's actually a player in the Kentucky Derby as well, providing things go right for him on the day, but he needs to perform here to actually go to the Kentucky Derby. I think he'll be all right on that, but I'll take him, Tom, at 4-1. So both of us, once again, take him on the head of the market.
Yeah, I think it's the right way to go in a race like this. There's no clear-cut favourite in my opinion, so I wouldn't want to be taking anything sub 3-1 on any horse in here, including River Thames. So I like the fact we're going for a couple of prices, especially considering their closers as well. If we do get that pace up top, it's going to suit us. One quick thing to note, if you are watching this and maybe the race is not being run on Saturday, they will reschedule it. I don't know when. Fingers crossed they do run it on Saturday, but the forecast looks horrific. I anticipate there's probably no turf racing this week as well.
Yeah, it will be probably a week or so before we see turf racing at Keeneland, but that is something that we are kind of used to. Myself and Tom will be on Sky Sports Racing as well on Saturday night. And Tom?
Yeah?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. That's the first time in mine and Tom's 5-year relationship. Yeah, screw it, relationship. We're together now. Friendship, some call it. that one of us has remembered the birthday.
Yeah, it is.
This year on my birthday, the first text I got from Tom, and he didn't acknowledge on my birthday at all. The first text that I got from him was abusing me.
You just appeared on my TV for no apparent reason. That's
and he
why.
remembers the abuse, and he remembers it as well. He's like, "Yeah, no, I did do that. Get off my TV." But I hope you have a lovely little time away with your real life partner. And I look forward to seeing you on Saturday.
Yeah, she's booked a trip to Bath, which is interesting. But yeah, I will see you on Saturday. 30th birthday on Saturday, so hopefully we can celebrate with a winner.
Yeah, exactly that. But that is the Turf and Touchdowns podcast for this week. A big shout out to everyone who backed the forecast last week off the back of our 1-2 with Sandman and Publisher. There were quite a few of you, so very well done on that. Hopefully, we can nail another one this week with Charles McPatrick and Burnham Square in any sort of order. But the Turf and Touchdowns podcast is in form. We look to continue that. We'll be back next week on the road towards the Kentucky Derby. Until we next get the chance to speak to you, leave a subscribe, leave a comment down below. We'll see you next week. Stay safe, look after one another. Goodbye.